you, Bill.
Okay. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning.
The new lead paint law that went into effect this past April appears as a burden to tradesmen, landlords, and homeowners alike. At first look, this law seems long, involved, and expense-causing, and this is all true. The lead renovation, repair, and painting law, as it is referred to, involves training and certification of remodels, safe work practice, safe work site practice, verification, and record keeping. It's very important to understand that this new law pertains to projects on any house built before 1978, with few exceptions as follows. Homes or child-occupied facilities that was built after 1978. The repairs are minor with interior work disturbing less than 6 square feet or exterior disturbing less than 20 square feet. Or if the house or components test lead-free by a certified risk assessor, lead paint inspector, or certified renovator. Now you're probably wondering what this new law might mean to you and your next remodeling project. The obvious answer is a healthier home for you, your family, and the people that perform renovations to it. My opponent Bob here will stress the fact that this new law will increase the cost for contractors and ultimately increase the cost for homeowners. But we have to keep in mind the bigger picture, the overwhelming need to live long, healthy lives. Over the last few months, I've heard several small contractors say that they will steer clear of older home renovations. And with this, a significant amount of small replacement window contractors will most likely go out of business and stop providing small window repair services. While we think the new law is important in protecting public safety, we also know that it will result in slightly higher prices for customers and less competition for contractors. If you hire a contractor to do a renovation in your home that was built prior to 1978, be sure to hire a certified contractor. You should ask to see your contractor's RRP certification prior to hiring them. Contractors performing work without the certification face penalties of $37,500 per day. Now, with over 38 million homes containing lead paint in the U.S. today, you can't stress enough the importance of implementing good lead paint laws. However, from the few meetings and conversations I've personally had, it's clear to me that this is going to take some time before it's very effective. Most of the literature and training has left contractors, like Bob here, confused, upset, and just downright frustrated. However, with time, these new laws will become part of everyday routine for contractors and ultimately help save lives. I certainly hope that the EPA works quickly to fill in the blanks and help contractors implement these new teachings. Now, Bob and I are suffering firsthand with this new law. We are part-time carpenters that perform small jobs on old homes. We have not acquired RRP certification, and we are at risk of penalties of and surpassing $37,500 per day if we are caught. People like us are at risk of losing our jobs if we're caught, mainly because we're not certified. But this law will be a huge motivating factor in persuading people towards a healthier work practice. We have to always be aware of our environment and the people in it, regardless of the sacrifice. We have to make sure that we are paving the road to a bright, healthy, lead paint-free future for our children and for generations to come. Now Bob's going to take it over from here for a little.
Thank you, Chase.
You're welcome, Bob.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not here to tell you that the new lead paint laws are bad in nature, but what I'm asking you to consider is whether or not these laws and their effects were appropriately considered before implementation. Lead paint was banned in the U.S. in 1977 for appropriate reasoning based on the same information we know today. Lead exposure can be extremely harmful, especially to children under the age of 6. But why are we really taking those laws to this new and unnecessary level 32 years after they were implemented? This is an example of the shortcomings of our political system. The EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, proposes bills and politicians decide what to vote on. With elections coming up, the politicians vote for something they think will pass and give them some bragging rights while running for re-election. Those efforts should have been toward the difficult, pressing, but necessary tasks that need to be accomplished for the citizens. What we need in these times is more jobs, not less. And instead, they're creating less by raising costs and difficulty levels of providing necessary services such as home improvements. I understand the importance of safety from lead poisoning for everyone, especially young children. But unsafe practices are quite obvious to any person armed with the knowledge that homes built before 1978 likely contain lead paint. So we work carefully with masks and HEPA-filtered vacuums, and we can have a health and safety without absurd requirements. We have all greatly benefited from the laws of banning the use of lead paint and requiring disclosure of lead paint information. The 1977 laws were effective. The rate of lead poisoning has been on rapid decline ever since. The percentage of children with elevated blood lead levels has decreased from almost 8% in 1977 to about 1% in 2007. This is with a change in the number of children tested from 1.6 million in 1997 to 3.2 million in 2007. So the percentage dropped from 8 to 1, while the number of children tested doubled. There are areas that have proportionally larger percentages of lead poisoning. These laws may be appropriate for these cities, such as Baltimore, Maryland. But even in Maryland, the rate has declined from 33% in 1993 to 1.8% in 2009. So why then do we really need these new laws? There's lead exposure stemming from a number of other sources too, such as pottery, bullets, porcelain, sinkers for fishing line, even in water from older plumbing. So what's next? Banning fishing, banning pottery, banning drinking water? Some laws are passed out of necessity, and some are just overkill.
Chase. That's a good argument. Okay. Bob mentioned loss of jobs and how devastating this could be to our economy during these difficult times. This problem has been going on for what seems like forever in a variety of industries. Throughout history, you've seen factory workers slowly lose their jobs to modern advances due to technological innovations. Machinists and small furniture makers have also suffered a loss due to the development of CNC computer-controlled machinery. When looking at the bigger picture, to what all this comes down to, you have to see that new innovations have been putting people out of work along with creating new jobs for generations. The implementation of this new law is no different. If we as an evolving society have yet to put the halt on innovations because it may cause loss of jobs, then why would we start now? We are trying to better our world with one new safety practice at a time here, people. If we were to listen to Bob's philosophy, then our industry as a whole would become stagnant with no new technological advances or healthier worksite practices. This would ultimately create a lag in the industry, preventing it from reaching its fullest potential. And that, ladies and gentlemen, would be a huge shame. Yes, it is true. There could be lead in fishing weights, pottery, bullets, and even on occasion your drinking water that could potentially be harmful to you. But the drinking water issue would be the main concern, but that is to be taken up with your local public water supply facilities. The harm that would come from the misuse and disposal of pottery and or fishing weights would be so minute compared to that of sanding down a 1960s lead-painted Victorian home, for example. There is no comparison to the devastating effects of lead paint. Some may argue that this law is overkill, but I feel like you can never be too careful when it comes to the health and safety of your children. Although there is an increase in the use in disposable plastic goods with this Although there is an increase in the use of disposable plastic goods, this is a necessity in making sure that there is no lead contamination in the surrounding areas around your job site. I personally do not know how Bob can sleep at night knowing that his cause could ultimately be hurting our society as a whole. Although at first this law may seem detrimental to people in and around the industry, it will ultimately benefit the safety of all involved. We cannot leave room for companies that do not abide by these laws to grow. We have to have faith in the industry contributors to grow their businesses with the knowledge of good, safe work practices that will create a brighter, healthier future for our children and for all generations to come.
So now that these laws are in effect, my opponent, the flautist, is correct that he now operates illegally without certification. I, on the other hand, have halted all business on structures built before 1978. This essentially cuts my potential business in half. There's about 50% of the homes in Massachusetts with lead paint in them. I don't want to or have the ability to pay this $37,500 per day in fines. And I want all of you to consider the effects of these fines on our economy and the workers in the economy. And I want to remind you that this law is not due to some crazy technological advancement. It's merely adding plastic and work to our environment. And what this law has done is it's made criminals out of us. Continuing operations as normal under these new laws is essentially the same thing as selling drugs for a living. You might do just fine for a little while, but you're bound to get burned somehow, sometime. Whether it's a fine for being caught working on a home with lead, or if a customer refuses to pay you, you have no recourse because you can't go to court to collect for something you did illegally. Just like you can't call the cops when somebody stole your pot. For these reasons, I'll likely suck it up and pay the $280 to take the certification course. But we'll have to build the cost of certification in addition to 15 to 20% extra costs into every job I do. So I have to hope that my customers will pay the extra money to have the job done legally, instead of hiring people like Chase here, or doing the job themselves. Both of those options host a number of other risks for discussion another time. So I'll be operating within the new laws and struggling to make profits. I'll have plastic enclosures 100 square feet around my work area. Sadly though, I won't have good feelings about this. And there's two reasons for that. One, I was working safely before the new laws. And number two, I'm gonna feel horrible about all this plastic. I have to throw it away after every job. And every time I go in and out of my enclosed work area, I have to change out of and throw away a Tyvek suit. So either my customer has to pay for all of this, or I'm losing money. And maybe if nothing else revokes the new laws first, the landfills will be overwhelmed with the plastic and the EPA will propose a law to ban the use of all this plastic. And then everybody will be fined for something and they'll get their money no matter what, because that's apparently what this is all about. So again, I'm not here to tell you that the new lead paint laws are bad in nature. I'm just asking you to consider whether or not these laws were implemented appropriately considered. Thank you.